Hey, and welcome to the podcast. Today, we are excited to sit down once again and just talk about student ministry. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of these conversations. And so, today, our conversation is going to be moving into our next month of conversations. And so, we're starting it with the topic of creating a culture of consistency. And so, there's a lot of stuff that can come with that, but we want to kind of hit the ground running. And so we're going to talk about this topic at hand first. And then over the next 3 weeks after this, we're going to break it down into different subsections of how you create this culture, how you keep this culture, and the importance of having it transition through different moments and opportunities and parts of your ministry. And so, with that being said, culture of consistency, I think before we get too far, Melissa or David, it's yours, whichever one wants to. But how would you define consistency in the context of student ministry?
I've got it. So I think you can define it in a couple different ways. I think when we go with the actual definition of consistency, that it's something that happens or someone that shows up week after week after week. I think when you're putting it into the context of student ministry, that you have to take into consideration that they have other things going on in their lives, just like the rest of us do. And so if they miss for a couple of things, for example, baseball season, that's caused a couple families to miss lately. And so they are consistently going to baseball. Maybe they're not consistently coming to youth. And so they're still being a consistent person, but maybe just not at your location. So I don't think that changes their in interest or intensity in your program. I think that it just changes where their priorities are in that very moment. When we look at just attendance, we can have this thought of, well, they're not showing up, so they must not be interested in what we're doing, or they may not want to come, or they may not like us. They may, not like the message I'm giving or the music that we're playing. And that may not be true. That may just not be what is the priority in their life. So I think that when you look at consistency in your program, you have to take all of those things into account. Because I think we can get really bogged down in our ego and our mental health as youth pastors, to say, oh, no one is showing up, but it may not be that moment for them. So, David, what do you think about consistency?
Well, and I had a tag question to go into that David can maybe answer. And so that's the great side of students when it comes to consistency. But like David, let's do the other side of the spectrum now. And what does consistency mean on our side of things? Obviously, students aren't necessarily always consistent, but what does it mean consistency wise when we're looking at our actual program and our actual ministries?
I think as cliche as it is to say, we've got to keep the main thing the main thing. Um, and I think sometimes we get so, as Melissa said, like we get so bogged down by the numbers that we forget that the most important thing is just to be present. Um, as long as we're present in creating a safe environment where these students can feel um, encouraged to be who they are and are being challenged to grow, and understanding the word of God. That's really what it comes down to more than anything else is consistently showing up, set the standard, whatever the standard might be, according to your vision and mission for your church as well as your student ministry. And if you continue to do those things, um, that's when growth begins to happen. They start to see that you're going to be there. But even going somewhat into the conversation that we're going to be looking at for the next month, I think sometimes a lot of churches are battling um, sort of a revolving door of youth pastors coming and going, and they just need to know that you're going to stay for more than a year, 2 years, 3 years, and so sometimes consistency is just letting them know I'm here for the long haul. I'm not looking to, you know, find sort of a ladder to a bigger church or a bigger situation or whatever it might be, but just showing up constantly, I think can help people see what you're trying to establish in your ministry.
Well, and I think there's an interesting dynamic to that for sure. And I think, and I mean, I think with most youth ministries, at least most of the youth pastors that I talk to, they have this idea of like, man, I'm going to be here. I'm a lifer, like all these things. Like they have all these great intentions and these great focuses. But at the end of the day, it's also this question of like, like ultimately, if you feel like this is God's calling on your life and then you feel God calling you elsewhere, how do we develop these consistent cultures and how do we can develop these consistent rhythms? And I think the key question to this, or the key point to this, has to be the mindset of we can't make ministry about ourselves. So if we are the main person pouring into everybody, then we are doing a disservice to the youth program. And so I think that's somewhere that we a lot of times fall into, though, due to lack of volunteers or due to just relational connections that happen with kids. But one of the greatest things you can do is begin to start allowing those relational connections to be established by leaders and volunteers within your church. That way, if you step out, they still have relationships with the adult, like the parent couple that has been teaching the same grade for the last 4 years. Or maybe you have a system to where you have volunteers that step up with them and they're in charge of a grade and they go from sixth grade to seventh grade to eighth grade to freshman. And that group of volunteers just stays with that grade. But I think it's one of those things that like, we need to be careful with the mindset of like, yes, I hope that you're in it for the long haul. I hope that you're there. But a lot of times we are looking for multiple opportunities. We are looking for things that also, it's just like sometimes, I mean, David, like you were at your last church for 10 years, 12 years, something like that. And it's a great opportunity, but it's one of those things that like, um, I think I can count on one hand the number of people in ministry that I know that have been at the same church for over 12 years. And most of them are 15, 20 now, which is awesome. But it's one of those things also, it's like, I think we need to be careful with navigating that realm, because when we do put all the focus and all the effort on us and not defer to all the leaders that we have that are staples of the church that live and make their um have already made your town their home, like, and they're not going anywhere. I think that's the best thing that you can do. Because, and this kind of jumps into my for my next question, and I'll just go ahead and answer it. And it's, was there a moment in your ministry journey when you realized the importance of consistency? I will say the moment that I realized that was the first time I left a youth program, and they were like, "Oh, you're leaving?" And it was like, "Oh, yeah." And it was just one of those things. But like, I can say that I took it even farther back than that, though, is the first time that I missed a Wednesday night was the first time I understood the importance of consistency, because people literally texted me, "Hey, where are you?" And so having those routines and having that consistent culture is really, really important. But I think once again, like, if I run the show, then what happens when I'm not there? All of the consistency, all of everything breaks because of the presence of me. And that's, like you said, we need to keep it simple. We need to keep it focused on the point. And the point is Jesus. We can be great youth pastors. We can be doing everything that we're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, if youth group isn't the same because I'm not there, then I need to be refocusing and rechanneling how I'm doing things. So, opening the question to you guys, was there a moment in your ministry journey when you realized the importance of consistency?
So the way I got into youth was I was children's and then I was family because, that just goes together. And then I'd gone on the mission trip with the youth group because they needed a female, like they just needed a girl. And the next year, we had had 5 youth pastors in 5 years while I was children's director. And so this fifth one quit the week before the mission trip. So we had to like pivot and figure out how to still make this happen. And luckily, it was the same trip we'd gone on the year before. So I knew all the people that we were going to go meet. And so we still made it happen. But halfway through the trip, I became the youth director. So, just fell into the role. But it was,
Holy smokes.
yeah. So, but it was because we needed someone that wasn't, well, I'm gonna put this out there. We needed someone older because we are these kids that had been our youth directors. We're all college kids. And so they're not made, we're a college town. They're not made to stay here. Like they're here for college and then they go back to where they came from or somewhere else. That's just the way life is in a college town. And so we love when we have college volunteers because we get our students get to meet new people, new experiences, new perspectives. But that is a downfall of that. And so they put me in charge, and that was 10 years ago. So yeah, it just kind of happened. So we saw that we needed a consistent person. We needed someone to always be there so that we could have these younger friends come in and still teach and get that younger perspective in there. But we needed someone to stay. Um, and so that was our like moment of consistency that, oh, this we need this. We can't have one person. Which then I looked back at my youth ministry like journey as a student, and I'd had just about, I think I counted six, and I was only in there 6 years. So I'm not saying that that was a detriment to my being a youth back in Hera, Oklahoma. I got to meet a lot of different people, and we did lots of different things. But we had the volunteers, we had the people at church, we had our parents. They were very involved. And so I think that's especially what you were talking about. We need those volunteers, the people who are staying at the church, to be involved with the life of those students so that they have that consistency, even if they have a new youth pastor.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And so with that though, like obviously there's the mindset of like having those consistent like um for lack of a better term, having those consistency pillars in your program of like, finding the volunteers that will stay a long time and really, really buy into the program and buy into those relationships because they have that love for teenagers and preteens in their church and that's where they want to serve. And finding those people that'll do it long term, that's a great thing because that the more people you have that'll buy in for the long run, then you have the same couple that has like that now like seniors are graduating that had them teaching sixth grade, and like having that longevity and having that focus is really really important. And it just honestly it's one of those things that like you never lose those relationships. And so we have that in our church right now. We have a parent couple that's they teach the sixth grade. And no kidding, they started teaching sixth grade when their daughter was in sixth grade. And now she's graduated, she's in college, and now she is their backup teacher for sixth grade when one of them cannot be here. And so it is super awesome. But it's just one of those things like the family dynamic of like they are a part of our program, they are a part of our family. And like I have asked them 100 times because I think as the leader of the program, you have to treat your volunteers well. And one of the ways that you treat them well is asking the question every year of like, hey, are y'all still in this? Like, this would be a great time for y'all to bow out if y'all need to. So we have time to like organize and structure over the summer and all these things. And they're always like, no, absolutely not. This is the best part of our week. We love it. And that's what you're wanting. That's what you're going for. And when you find those leaders, that's where you get the opportunity. And honestly, they can be your best PR. When you're looking for new leaders, go talk to the ones that love serving in ministry and tell them, hey, do you have anybody that like you'd recommend? Because they're the ones that are going to be like, oh yeah, no, let me go talk to this person. And like they sell it with their enthusiasm and their like drive behind the program, which is great.
Yeah, I mean,
So go for it,
I was
Dave.
just going to say, I think it's in our context, like we're really blessed to have um, two specific, Wes and Sandra, who have been consistently part of our youth ministry for like 25 years. And they're as passionate today as they were 25 years ago when they started. And so anytime we need anything, those two, like, they think of stuff before our, even sometimes our, like, they anticipate what our students need before they even know they need it. And it's such a special thing to have. And so having those kind of people, they're the ones that um, will very quickly help out.
Yeah, and just I think we've mentioned this in previous episodes on the podcast, but David is at my home church right now. Um and that's one of the things is my little brother is literally turning 30 in November, and he had both of the volunteers that David's talking about as a 6th grade through 12th grade. And so having that longevity, and even having the fond memories of like being able to look back and be like, wow, like they are so awesome. They were there the whole time. They're still doing this. Holy cow. Like it means a ton. And like building that consistent culture that we're talking about, like you have to find the volunteers that are there and there for the long haul. So
Okay, I want to add to that about those 25 volunteers. So my parents were those volunteers all the way through my like our 7 years. My sister's year younger than me of youth ministry, and one of those youth pastors, like I said, I had like six of them. He is a pastor in Ohio now, and when we found each other on Facebook when it was invented, um, he was like, "Hey, do you have your dad's contact information?" Like he was a really big important part of my life, and I want to talk to him. Like he still was looking for advice from him. And that was, you think about our volunteers having an impact on our students, but this was a parent volunteer having an impact on the youth pastor. And that was still, I mean, Gavin is older than me, but like he was still going, hey, can I talk to your dad? I have some questions. I need some advice.
Mhm.
And so I thought that was really cool. Like I love that.
And to that point, I still think about my leaders that I had growing up that consistently poured into me, and being able to once a year I reach out to everybody who had a part of that 13 to 18 range in my life, and the fact that they poured into me so much has created a bit of consistency in me, and something that I get to pour into our students in the same way they poured into me. And so I think it's also really important to go back and remember those people. And I love giving them updates of, they still check in with me. So like I check in with them at least once a year, but they check in with me still as well. And I don't know. I just think there's something really valuable in having that level of consistency, and having people who continue to pour into you well into your adult life. And now a few of them actually have had an opportunity to kind of pour into my son too. And when it starts to hit that multi-generational, that's really special.
definitely. No, and I mean it's one of those things that like having and that the multi-generational stuff, like it's that is the stuff that really just allows ministry to flourish and just come alive, because those relationships are working, they have longevity and they show, and that's great. And so but with this though, like we have to have kind of address the other side of this conversation. Obviously volunteers and finding the right ones that are consistent and want to be there are huge, but what are some challenges on the other side of things, and how do you handle it when key leaders or volunteers become inconsistent? How do you address that? How do you need to handle that when it comes to the consistency of your program? And then I guess ultimately, what do you do? What's the game plan?
So for me, the biggest thing is I think it goes back to what you said earlier. I think it was you, Brent, and having consistent communication with your leaders to say, "Hey," and also I think goes back to what Melissa was saying as well. Is sometimes seasons of life can get really hard and pull focus not just on our students, obviously, but our leaders. I have a current leader who is going through a really tough time. Has recently lost a job that he had been in for over 20 years, and is just really struggling on a personal level and on a spiritual level too. When you pour that much into something and it's ripped away from you, your whole identity begins to or you struggle with that. I mean, we all know that we're ultimately children of God above anything else that we say and do, but man, when that's a core part of your life and that gets ripped away, it's been difficult for him. And one of the biggest things that we had in our conversation, number one, was giving him the grace to kind of push back just a little bit. Push isn't the right word, but to sort of draw back a little bit and figure some things out, and having some people kind of step up for him was really really important. But I would say the other side of it too is understanding something that the spirit put on my heart pretty much the day I found out about it in our conversation when we went and got coffee that night is this is a really good opportunity for our students to see how to handle a really, really tough situation. And I told him, I was like, listen, if you're not comfortable with that, that's perfectly okay. But I want to make it clear that we have an opportunity to show some real leadership in adversity. And he was game for that. And one of the conversations we had was, you know, is it okay to be vulnerable? Is it okay to be honest? And I said, absolutely. They need to hear that. And if that is today, I really am mad at God. Let's talk about it. And so having the consistency of showing up despite the adversity, despite the struggle, has opened up some really cool organic conversations over the last couple of Sundays for us. And those would not have happened if he didn't show up. And so, again, just showing up and being consistent through
Sure.
adversity.
Sure. Yeah, and so I think we've hit the volunteer and the leader side pretty well. Let's jump to back to the students. And
Mhm.
I, Melissa, you kind of started with this mindset of like the consistency of students, and sometimes it's sports season, sometimes it's other things going on, and all these different things. And so, what are some challenges that you've faced with inconsistent student attendance, and how have you responded?
Our big one is I've mentioned this before that a lot of our families in our community, in where my church is, low income families. And so when it gets to be 15, 16, when they can get a job, they must have to get a job because mom and dad are not, usually one of them, is not going to be able to pay for those extracurricular things at school. And so this is how that's going to be paid for. And so I lose them. Like, so I swear, high school happens and I lose them. But it's not because they don't want to be there. It's just they are in school Monday through Friday, and then this is the time they can work. And so I think that when we look at who's missing and why, we have to take that into consideration. And so there's some ways that you can combat that by going, okay, well, if you can't be here Sunday morning, what's another time that we can talk? What's another way that I can see you? If they're in that extracurricular that they're trying to raise money for, let's go see them at that game, at that performance, at the thing that they are doing. And so just us only doing ministry Monday through Friday is not really a thing. Like, even just doing ministry on Sunday is not a thing. And so where can I step up in my life to help them while they're having to do work and job and work and school, all those things at the same time? Because that's a lot. That's a lot for a student. And so instead of going, well, they're not coming to Sunday morning, I'm just going to put them on the back burner and I'm going to focus on the kids that are here in my building. That's not only, that's doing a great disservice to your ministry, and it's great doing a great disservice to that student who is really needing you more than they were when they were not working and just going to school. So it's the looking at why they're missing, and taking that into consideration, and where can we meet them where they are.
Yeah, and I thought especially last week when Russell brought up the mindset of, I think he said in an episode in last week's episode where he almost got to go on a ride along with a parent, like with a family for a sports weekend. And that was something that he always wanted to do, is just like kind of see the dynamics of what that looked like and how he could step in alongside them. I was like, man, that's an interesting take on how to combat something that, like, across the board, we are all dealing with. Every single student ministry has kids that are doing sports, that are doing other things, and we have to be prepared for that. And we have to give them opportunities for that to happen. Um, and so with that though, like obviously inconsistent student attendance is one of those things that like kids are going to be involved in things, kids are going to be doing different things, and how we respond, like you said, is really, really important. And it's like, hey, I know you're busy. Hey, I know that you're there. We never want to have it as this mindset of like, well, I can't believe you missed youth again, kind of thing like that. Because first off, they're gonna jump ship quick because they don't want to be around people that are negative and toxic, and so don't be that person. um but it's just one of those things that like we need to be consistent in how we say things, we need to be consistent in our approach, we need to be consistent in how we respond to our students. And if they expect us and we develop this consistency mindset of like, oh man, they're always angry when I'm gone, like guess what, they're not going to tell you when they're gone. um it's just one of those things. I had a kid one time, like uh it was it I mean, of course, in the back of my mind when this kid told me, I was like, yes, kind of thing like that. But he was like, hey Brent, like, do you ever get angry? Like, I don't think I've ever seen you like mad. Like, you just seem like a not angry person. And I was like, dude, I mean, like and I just explained to him, I was like, man, like y'all are too important for me to lose my cool. uh, uh
So mine, the younger ones haven't seen me be angry. The older ones have. So they wear it as a badge of honor that oh well, you just don't know her the way we do because we have seen her be angry. Like we have seen her yell to get in the van. So
a
they
badge
think
of honor. Oh
they
my
do. They have
gosh.
it's like a badge of honor that they know me better than the younger ones do. Like oh you just haven't been here long enough. Like yeah.
But I think it also speaks into that mindset of consistency where, like, if you are generally the cool, calm, and collected person and you do elevate and you do raise your voice and stuff like that, they're like, ooh, oh, we might have messed up. And so they're really, really quick to realize the situation they're in, and like the joking and like lack of being serious, like it goes away real fast. But that goes back to the consistency too. And so David, kind of transitioning and moving on, with this, students still the topic of the conversation. Obviously, one of the things that we want to do as youth pastors is we want kids to pick up those spiritual disciplines and those practices, and just the spiritual habits that they need to be doing and they need to be establishing now, that will ultimately, hopefully, travel with them through life. Reading God's word, praying, all the different spiritual habits and spiritual disciplines that we have. How do you help students develop consistent spiritual habits outside of just attending youth?
I think the biggest thing is knowing the student well. Um, I think sometimes we could get sort of regimented into like, this is a book that really, really helped me. But if I know the way that you are wired, I might know that what might help me and might impact me might be radically different from what would help another student. And so I think it
That's good.
comes down to, you have to know your students well enough to know that this system will work. A good example of sort of the other way around that is, growing up, my dad could not stand me because he didn't understand me. And I think that that was the hardest thing for us, was that my dad had a way of doing things that made sense to him, that worked for him, and those were great things. And honestly, yeah, when it came to fixing a car, it would make sense for me to do it the way that he did it, because he did it consistently for 50 years, at this point, at the time 30. And so would make sense to do it his way, but it didn't make sense to me, and it was something I just couldn't wrap my head around for whatever reason. And really, the main reason is that I'm not gifted in that way. I'm just not. I can create with my hands, but I can fix certain things with my hands, but I am not great with cars. And so it became a place of contention for both of us because I could not do it his way and I wasn't doing it fast enough. So there, I must be bad. And it made me feel terrible, dude. I hated that I couldn't make my dad happy. And I think it seems like a sad example, but I think in some ways our students are looking in the same way that we ultimately um, handle our own family relationships. And for some students, the closest thing to a dad they may have is me or a mom for like regardless of the situation, if we're the closest thing to a parent that they have, then we need to build a relationship and not only show them practices that are important, but we have to have that relationship well enough to know that what works for me may not work for you. So let's have that conversation, those deep conversations to go, oh, I've noticed consistently that you're struggling with insecurity. Here's some practices that can help you deal with those a little bit better. Like, you know, here's what I want you to do. I want you to get an expo marker, which I happen to have right here, and I want you to first talk to your parents, make sure it's cool with them, but I want you to write on your bathroom mirror um, versus, or what I want you to do is write how what's the thing that you see in the mirror when you look in the mirror, what are the words that come to your mind? And what I want you to do is I want you to then cross that out and write down a scripture that combats that insecurity and that thought. That becomes a practice that helps them to mentally realize that what they're telling themselves, what the world's telling themselves, all those different or telling them maybe counter what God has created them and the purpose that He has given them. And so that's just one practice, but it's knowing them well enough to go, okay, here's some practical books and practices and structure that will help you be the best person to understand the calling and purpose that God has for your life.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to the idea of like we have to deliver the good of the good news. Like if we don't know what good is for them, then it's really really hard to deliver the good news. Because yes, Jesus died for you is the ultimate message, but like we have to look into navigating those conversations to where we know if they're struggling with identity, then you say, "Hey, look, you're a child of God. That is your identity." And so you have to know how to deliver the good news in order for that to work, just like you have to know what would work best for them. If they're not a reader and they're an audiobook listener, or if they are a visual person, then you send them different things. And so understanding all those different things are great. And so have a couple more. We're kind of running out of time, but I would say two more questions, maybe a third. What are just one or two small practical ways a ministry can start becoming more consistent? Maybe you aren't super consistent right now. First and foremost, I'll just go ahead and throw in my two. Um, Develop and stick to a schedule. Um, and I'm talking make a calendar for at least a couple months, but then also have a Wednesday or a Sunday night routine and structure and schedule that you abide by in and out so kids know what to expect, how to expect, when to be, where to be, all those different things. The more structured you can be in that mindset, it helps with the consistent flow of trying to figure out all those different things. So schedule long term and schedule short term. The more structured you are with your planning, the more consistent things are.
And I want to add to that because that's been the dynamic I've had here in the struggle, and Brent is especially understands my struggle here. I got here and it was a um, games only mentality. If I'm putting it bluntly, and I'm not saying that Jesus wasn't happening because these students know Jesus and they love Him, but it was youth is a time for play and fun, and it's more about like what game we can play. And I was like, that's fantastic. Now, how can I shift the culture? Because I want I want a good worship culture. And so I would say to build the consistency there, you actually have to do it even when it doesn't make sense, even when you get pushback. Because building a culture is not something that happens overnight. It is something that takes consistently showing them why it matters, and that might mean week after week saying, "Hey, we're gonna do that game, but we're gonna do it after worship, and here's why: because the most important thing that we do is give glory to God." And if it's just that simple, they start to go, oh, youth is about Jesus, not about me, not about fun. Fun is something that we can do, but as a byproduct of the fact that we are free in Jesus, and that kind of thing. And so it's like, hey, yeah, we're going to do that thing, but we're going to do worship first, because I don't want to short change Jesus in the pursuit of fun, if that makes sense. And they're starting to get that, but it's taken all of this year to build that to where now they're like, hey, if we have time, could we do this? That may sound really small, but before it was, hey, instead, can we do this? Now it's, hey, if we have time, can we try this? Or hey, would it be okay if we showed up a little bit early so that we would have more time to do this thing later? I'm great with that. Like, you want to show up 30 minutes early so we can have some time afterwards? I'm great with that. Like, let's talk Jesus right away. I'm great with that. So, but it is really, really challenging when you're trying to build that culture, and frustrating at times. But stay consistent, keep pushing forward, keep helping them understand the why of it, because at some point you're going to see that light come on, and when you do, it's a beautiful thing. And I'm starting to experience that now.
I would say, adding on to all of that, if you need a system, um, we're Methodists here, we like methods. But if you need a system, figure out what your culture, what you want to change, and all that. Do that over the summer. Maybe you have some, sit down and really concentrate and listen to God, and do some research if you need to. But figure this out over the summer, and then if you need a system, start a program, a plan for the fall where we are going to do these things, and make it a thing. Like, make it, give it a name, do something big so that everybody is on the same page, everybody has the same vision. But also the kids are like, okay, we're going to do this new thing, and making this system and making this routine. And so we're going to do that this summer. I wanted to change. We have a culture of, they come to youth in the evenings on Sundays, but they do not come to Sunday morning service, and I want them to come to Sunday morning service because we have a new pastor. He's great at sermons, and they need to try him before they, say, I don't want to do that. And so we're starting a program this next week, actually, that is specifically like, it's a point based, but you get points for coming to service and da 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 da. So that we did have to have a conversation this week about how works don't like create your into heaven. Like, we had that conversation, that we are building a foundation, and we played with Legos because we were building a foundation. And so, but if you need to make it a thing, make it a program, make it a plan where it is a big deal, then that can help you with the keeping it consistent, because now people are expecting you to do it. And if they're expecting you to do it, like, well, you're expected to show up to work, you kind of show up to work. So when you're expected to do things, when other people know this is your plan, you're more likely to do it, or at least I am.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I'll say one thing quick to that, just expectation of practicing and trying new things. Just because you try a new program doesn't mean you're stuck with it. Like, if you start something and it fails epically, make sure you give it enough time to actually run its course. But say, hey, I'm going to run this program for 3 months, or I'm going to run this program for 6 months, and then we're going to reevaluate. Just because you start something, please, please, please hear me out. Don't run it into the ground because you thought it was a good idea. Um, the number of times that that's happened to me, the number of times that I have not gone into the mindset of developing new programs from a research perspective, and much more of like a dictator perspective instead of like, I'm in charge, I'm going to start this program. Please, please, please hear me when you do that. It is great to research, try new things, try new programs, try new opportunities to get kids in the door, whatever. But Trial and error is huge. If you try, make sure you are ready to assess what you're doing to make that a thing. That is off topic completely, but I feel like that's super important to throw in there.
To that point, and I'll make it quick. If you're writing notes, write this down, because this is something that has helped me tremendously. Just because it's good doesn't mean it's right. I think that's important for us to remember. Just because it's a good thing
Yeah.
does not mean it's right for you today or even in this season of life. It might be something that you can do a year from now, but it's not right now. And so it's understanding timing, and all of that's really important. So if it's a good thing, scroll it away in your notes and maybe try again later with a
Yeah.
different dynamic.
Yeah. Definitely. And so finally, to close off, because we are over time, but it's totally okay. Good discussion, good conversation. What would you say to a ministry leader who feels discouraged by a lack of consistency in their ministry? Real quick, short answers. Go for it.
Give yourself a little bit of grace. Like, if just because things are not working right now, just like David said, doesn't mean that things won't change. And so don't be too hard on yourself. Like, we're all just trying to figure this out. There's not really a handbook for this. Like, and every church is different. Every youth group is different. Every state is different. And so it may take a little bit of time to figure out how your people are going to work. So give yourself a little grace.
I would also say make sure that you're getting good rest. Sometimes the reason things aren't working is because you are overtaxed and overtired, and what you would normally do well, maybe you're not able to do as well because you are exhausted. And so maybe you need to take a step back and lean in a little bit more on your volunteers, lean in a little bit more on your students so that you can get the proper rest and be able to sort of reset your brain and recalibrate and figure out how to better handle whatever the situation might be.
Yeah. And so, with that, the whole taking a step back, the other thing that I would say is control what you can control that's small, whether that's developing a calendar for the next 4 months or the next month. If 4 months is daunting to you, we are bleeding into the summer season right now. It would be a great time, if you already haven't done it, to have a summer calendar. If you know where you're going to church camp, be sure to have all that stuff out and available. The Like I said, the more that you can put out ahead of time and then stick with what you plan. Please don't cancel things, because canceling programs, canceling ministry opportunities, that destroys any consistency that you have. Or for the couple kids, and this is what I see a lot of people do, is it's this mindset of like, oh, we're going to plan this event, we're going to have 40 people show up and it's going to be great, and 8 sign up. And you're like, well, it's really not enough. Like, we're probably going to have to cancel this because like there's not enough kids here. Don't do that. All you're doing is telling those kids that they're not worth it. And so please, please, please be mindful of what you plan. Stick with what you plan. It's okay to modify plans. Don't ever cancel plans unless it is an uncontrollable instance that you can't avoid. But canceling just because there's not enough kids showing up, at least in your brain, is going to destroy consistency for the couple of kids that are coming. So please, please, please be mindful of that. But that is all the time we have for this episode. All we ask is, man, we thank you for all the listens. Thank you for all the support that you've given us over the years. We just ask that you continue to share this podcast with your youth pastor friends. Share it on social media at Talk Student Men. Share an episode. Tag us in it. We'd love to be in the conversation with you. All else fails, our goal is to get you out content and conversations so you can have different things to think through, different things to talk to. And then we also would love your opinions and your responses to these episodes. You can always shoot us an email, podcast@Student Ministry Conversations, so you can be a part of the conversation. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on every episode, or just anything that you'd have to share. So with that, we hope you have a great week, and we will see you for the next episode.